You're going to Iowa on Tuesday. What's your message there ahead of the midterm elections?
Right to the farmers. The farmers have been great. I helped them out when we were going through the difficulty with China.
How much travel are you going to do this year, campaign travel?
I'm going to do a lot of campaign traveling. I hate to tell you guys, but it's going to keep you employed. Now, we're going to work hard.
After a week of wins in Davos, the president is shifting his focus to the midterms and hitting the road on a nationwide economic tour. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Brian Brenberg, along with my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Dagan McDowell, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, the Federalist reporter, Brianna Lyman. Good to see you, Brianna.
Good to be here.
Iowa first up as President Trump crosses the country to make a case for his economic agenda ahead of the midterms.
You've expressed some concern, though, about the midterm elections.
Well, my only concern is that presidents never win. You know, what is it, 2 times in 50 years? Democrat or Republican. Even we have the greatest economy in the world. We have the greatest investment in a country in history by many times. Nobody's ever had that. Think of it, $18 trillion. We have thousands of businesses being built right now. And they're going to be opening soon, and it's going to be amazing. Also, the great big beautiful bill kicks in.
He has some wind at his back as the latest GDP report shows the U.S. economy growing at its fastest pace in 2 years, fueled by strong spending. But can a president who's not on the ballot save his narrow majority in Congress? Brianna, come to you first on that. The president's right. Historically speaking, this is not a great spot to be in for the president and his party into a midterm. Do you think he can defy history here?
Well, I think if anybody can, it will be Donald Trump. I mean, this is someone who's now only the second president to be a 2-term president, non-consecutive. When it comes to the midterms, I think that Republicans still have an opportunity to at least hold on to their seats, maybe even narrowly, if they do the right work. And I think what's also important is you look to Virginia, right? Democrats have just taken control of all the Virginia government. And the first thing they did after promising affordability for weeks is taxes on Uber, taxes on delivery fees, taxes on gym memberships, every single thing they're trying to make life more expensive. So if Republicans are able to point to those examples and say, look, we've put you on the right track, to President Trump's point, the economy is doing well by the metrics, let us continue on that track. Otherwise, you elect the Democrats, they're already raising taxes. That's exactly what they're going to do to you next year. So
a little message discipline, I think, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, but so Jackie, here's the dynamic. President's racking up tons of wins, I think historic big accomplishments overseas, which will look good in the history books. But do they look good for midterm voters in 2026? Or are the politics going to be overshadowed by all of the big accomplishments overseas?
The problem is the foreign policy and the accomplishments overseas. People don't realize how bad it would have been because what would have been never actually happened. That's what happens when you use deterrence, when you use avoidance as a method, which is, to me, more valuable than going down the course of actually seeing the carnage that could happen when you don't do that. But because they don't see it, they can't touch it, they can't feel it. It's great. It's great. But is it, helping them here at home in their everyday lives? Those are the issues, the kitchen table issues that I think they're going to be focused on. And it's not just Congress. You've got a bunch of big governor races as well. I'm looking here in New York specifically, and I'm thinking about Elise Stefanik dropping out of our race for governor here. She laid out her reasons, her family, et cetera, that she wants to have a different focus. But part of it also was that President Trump didn't endorse her. He's endorsing Bruce Blakeman, who is somebody in my view, that doesn't have as much name recognition and recognizability as Elise Stefanik, but that's who he's going behind. So, if you have his endorsement, the thought is that you'll be successful and that you'll win. But historically, and he's worried about it too, midterms don't always go to the party of the president, but these are really important races. I think him campaigning with the energy and the vigor that he put into both of his presidential elections, will definitely help. And we'll kind of have to see where it goes. He's focused on affordability. We know that matters to people, whether by November they feel enough has been done and it's coming down, trickling down to the pocketbook enough is really, I think, the crucial issue.
He's going to tour the country, Dagan, like a rock band that wants to sell albums, okay? The question is, does he have enough hits on the economy to sell those albums? And I think an X factor, I bet you might agree with me on that, is energy. I wonder if enough of the Trump energy plan is going to start paying dividends this year that it's going to be compelling to voters. What do you think?
Gasoline prices are important, and it is one of the most critical measures of personal inflation, because when you go to fill up your car, you see those numbers and you see the raw total of what it costs to put that gasoline in your tank. So that is part of it. But I asked Anna Paulina Luna this yesterday on the bottom line, that with the Greenland deal that came together, at every turn, everything the White House does, everything that Washington and Congress do, you have to answer, what's in it for us? What's in it? What's in that for regular Americans? And there has been, I'm not disagreeing with the president's motives, and I said this earlier in the week, that he is singularly focused on what is in America's best interest. But Greenland, interest rates are, longer term interest rates are not falling. Republicans, plenty of them still voting for spending increases or excess spending down in Washington. The president is talking about increasing, our defense budget of 66% by 66% to $1.5 trillion. That does not line up with fiscal health in terms of how much we're spending on interest on the national debt. And I think that the American household, the family, they're looking at their own personal finances, and they're going to be demanding the same from the federal government. And I'm not sure how spending more money and focusing on overseas really kind of resonates with regular folks.
Taylor, when you look at the data, I know you're always looking at the data, do you see a signature thing in what's happening with the economy this year, that when the president goes out on the trail, he's going to say, this is it, folks. Here it is, the thing I'm delivering that I promised that you wanted, that's making your life better, my signature accomplishment. Do you see that, or is it too muddled right now?
Gosh, could it be tax refunds? Maybe, if that's like sort of the message in the next coming weeks, more money in your pocketbook. We talk about cash flow out versus cash flow in. Could this be the year where there's more cash flow coming in than there is cash flow going out on an inflation-adjusted basis? That could be one thing. You talk about data, and Dagan talks about personal finances. Let's talk about this. You guys know I talk about the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Surveys. Let's take all of this with a grain of salt. Volatile, political, I know, but I've mentioned it before, and I want to mention it today when it also happens to be good. U.S. consumer sentiment, Brian, rising to a 5-month high. Americans are more optimistic about economy and finances. Here's what I like. It was reflected across all incomes, ages, educations, and political affiliations. So a little bit more broad-based excitement about consumer sentiment, about how we are feeling. Now, despite high prices, consumers are resilient in their spending. We've talked about that. And buying conditions for durable goods rose to a 3-month high. That's good. Durable goods are the things like
a wash machine,
the tariffs, right? All of that. So that's a good sign. Another thing too, and you know this from economics, from a business perspective, you're hesitant to hire the minute things start to look good, just in case it doesn't pan out. But I'm also hesitant to fire the minute things start to roll over, just in case things turn around. It's hard to replace that worker. So I hold on to that worker, maybe shorten the work week, but hold on to them, or maybe don't hire originally, because I'm trying to figure out the economy. Post-global financial crisis in 2008, we talked about this jobless recovery, the jobless expansion, but hiring eventually came. So maybe that's the good GDP numbers. Hiring may eventually now start to come this year, because if job growth lags output, GDP, that could be what we see this year. We've often talked on this panel about the low hire, low fire
Right.
mode. Is that maybe something that finally turns around this year that is a positive?
And can I just add to that?
Please.
No tax on tips and overtime and stuff. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't know anybody who files their taxes that early or can do it in January. I don't even have all the, receipts and paperwork that I need to be able to do that. So picture people filing, if you're, kind of on the early side, late February, March, you're still not going to get that refund check that you're looking for until 6 weeks, 8 weeks later than that.
Okay.
So there is a lag on that. Even though we said flipping the calendar was going to help people feel better about things, it still needs a little time.
I always want to get it going right away, and then the weekend comes, and I'm like, I don't want to do taxes. Like, I want to
do them?
Anything. Well, I don't want to prepare my documents for doing taxes because I just want to do anything else. I agree. Now, I thought you'd have yours lined up right away, though.
I do a folder, and as they trickle in, I start putting stuff in the folder, but there's ultimately things that don't come in January or February, and so I end up, waiting until April 15th.
America, get your folders together so you can get your money sooner.